say, because Vinnie Mac doesn't like it when I talk about his product. So I've been watching this show called WWE Ruthless Aggression. For you, those of you who don't know, Ruthless Aggression is the era that happened after the Attitude Era. And not many, to my knowledge, documentaries and things talk about the Ruthless Aggression era. There's 101 documentaries about the Attitude Era, but what got my attention on this one is it talks about an era where the talent was amazing, the wrestling was amazing, it was a lot more funny, there was a lot less stupid kind of goofy stuff. And this show, it's only 5 episodes, is a look behind the scenes of what was going on in that era. So I really liked it. So I'm going to use this episode just to talk about it a little bit. The first episode covers the transition from the Attitude Era to Ruthless Aggression. And what's fascinating about it is what you saw on screen kind of reflected what it was behind the scenes, and it's amazing. You know, this really sort of shows how much real life plays into the show. The show kind of opens up, if I remember, when Vince buys WCW, which we all know, and at this point you're kind of like, I've heard this 101 times. How many times does Vince McMahon need to go on about the fact he bought his competition? But as it gets past the kind of 5-minute mark, it starts talking about how there's almost a panic backstage that all the talent that's now on this show is struggling to get noticed, and there just isn't enough TV time. And there's a thing I remember watching on TV when all this happened, where Vince McMahon comes down to the ring, he gets all of his wrestlers around the outside of the ring, and he just sort of talks to them and sort of says, "Grab that brass ring." When I actually saw it on here, I was like, "Oh, that's real." And they kind of play it off as if to say Vince didn't tell anybody he was going to do that. Vince just came down and he was speaking to his roster for the first time about grabbing that brass ring in front of everybody. I'm looking for the next big star, the next Rock, the next Austin. I'm looking for the next big star. That could be you. All I need you to do is actually prove that you can be that guy. They could have done that backstage. They could have had that conversation backstage, but they did it in the ring. And he was legitimately talking to all of his stars to sort of, come on, prove it. Talking about how the invasion angle didn't really work. When they did this invasion angle, which is WCW invades WWE, and all the crowd anticipation was like, oh my God, I'm going to see Austin versus Goldberg. I'm going to see like Kevin Nash versus The Rock and stuff like that. That didn't happen. Instead, they had WCW's kind of middle card take on WWE's big card. And they talk about that. They go through and sort of say how WCW wasn't really a threat and how it bombed and how that was supposed to carry WWE into the next decade. And instead it kind of went down like a wet fart. The draft, they cover the draft and how the crowd were, the wrestlers didn't know who was going to be drafted where. Austin and how he was fed up with WWE Creative and what that was all. The other bit I really liked about the show was Vince McMahon talking, I don't know if it was to his shareholders or just to the press or something, but he kind of talks about how WWE is going through this transition period. Episode 2 covers John Cena. And you may have seen, 101 different John Cena documentaries. But this one again goes into how he started, how he failed, in his own words, and then how he built himself up to be the biggest name in wrestling. And it covers his developmental, how he started out and how he got noticed. He covers how he learned the respect of Kurt Angle and the Undertaker and how that went about being that. And then how he got given everything, this massive opportunity, and he didn't get it. He didn't get it right, and it's all done in his own words. It all comes from John Cena, so it's not as if other people are just sort of making excuses for him. He basically says there is no excuse. I just messed it up. Then how he transitioned into kind of like the rapper, and how the crowd loved him so much because he was new and edgy and all that kind of stuff. And like the transition during that time, how he started becoming the guy. But just as fascinating, it explains why he turned into kid-friendly John Cena, which is what a lot of people complain about. But the fact that he became champion and why he turned into John Cena that everybody, kind of booed every time he went into arena. Very intelligent man. Very intelligent man. Next episode is the Evolution group. So Ric Flair, Dave Bautista, Randy Orton, and Triple H. And they talk about how they formulated the group, why they formulated the group, about the different members in this. They talk about how when Ric Flair came back to WWE, how he had such a bad time in WCW, and then they brought him back into the group, he came back into WWE as part of the merger eventually. But he wasn't Ric Flair. He was kind of... he'd lost what had made him Ric Flair because of what happened with WCW and how he was treated in WCW. He didn't know how to be Ric Flair anymore. He was kind of like a caricature of Ric Flair. And how Triple H sort of went, we need to fix this. You're Ric Flair, damn it. They also cover how Randy Orton was such a dick. I mean, I think everybody knows Randy Orton's a dick if you watch wrestling. He kind of personifies that on TV, and also his stories behind the scenes. But they actually show it, like what he used to say to kids when he was champion, like people who had come to see him. Yeah, they sort of show how he kind of destroyed himself, his own career push, and how John Cena came in there instead because of what Randy Orton used to be like. Then they covered Batista and how he was more of a smooth rise, and how everybody just wanted to shoot, Batista into the stratosphere straight away. And Triple H was like, no, hang on, we're going to cook this, we're going to make it right. And how Triple H tried to hold everybody back to make Batista right, and how that paid off better as a result than what making Randy Orton champion straight away. Oh, and it sort of talks about the fact that Batista almost didn't make Evolution because of an injury he sustained, and they got another guy to take that spot, and how Batista almost was left from the group, but it didn't work, and how Triple H didn't like the guy that they got as a replacement. What many people think when you're in a group is easier because you've got other people to rely on, how you still need everything to sort of line up to be able to make it successful. Episode 4 is about Brock Lesnar. Again, how he came through OVW and how he evolved, and how he became the next big thing, and how that was led mainly by Brock Lesnar wanting to get there as quickly as possible. So he just sort of steamrolled and said, look, I'm leaving if you just don't give it to me, which is typical Brock Lesnar. And of course, when they did get him on TV, he went crazy, and he became basically their biggest star straight away. But then they start talking about how Brock Lesnar was just fed up of the travelling, and they've spoken about this before, which is no big surprise if you're a wrestling fan. But it's interesting again to sort of see it happen and how that affected the people backstage. I think that's the part that people forget about. It's like, oh yeah, we just showed up travelling, that's why Brock Lesnar wasn't there. But how the people backstage, all the different personalities that make the show work, how they have to scramble around to sort of go, okay, Brock Lesnar is fed up, what do we do? That's the fascinating part. It's like there's a lot of cogs in that machine to make that work, and just seeing it all work and how people try to do a job is quite interesting. And the sort of, again, how they take a talent like Brock Lesnar, who for many was just like, it looks so easy, there's no way you can mess it up, how they almost did, how it almost did go wrong. And it just takes, one guy, in this case Paul Heyman, just sort of take that talent and say, this is how we should use them, not like what you're trying to do. The final episode of season 1 covers the other talent that are there, so the brand split and what that meant for everybody else. Eddie Guerrero, JBL, Edge, and how they sort of come through. It goes into a lot more detail about how talent were worried about getting noticed, and what they had to do to try and get attention, and how the brand split was both a golden egg for success, because you now had a massive roster split into two, so you got more chance to sort of have TV time, and how people got split up, and also how that affects you mentally with regards to the travel, because you might have your buddies that you used to travel a lot around with, and the travel no one likes the travel or the work schedule of WWE, clearly. So it's the people you surround yourself with and the situations you put yourself in to sort of get you through the job, just like any other job. Not everybody likes working in, retail and stuff like that, but it's the people you're with that gets you through that. And if you're with fun people, the job doesn't seem so bad. What happens now if you're torn apart from those people because you're on a different show in a different part of the country, in a different country altogether sometimes? So yeah, the Ruthless Aggression sort of documentary, I thought it was really interesting. As I said, there's not many times the Ruthless Aggression gets kind of behind the scenes look like this. Most of documentaries I've ever seen is about Attitude Era, so it's nice to sort of see a different era and how that worked. I think it's fascinating to think that everybody who sort of looked at this era and went, well, they had so much talent, it's not really that interesting, they just needed to put them on TV, how that didn't work and how that could have gone terribly, terribly wrong. They advertised a new season where they will cover more of what happened in Ruthless Aggression era. Yeah, it's a good watch. Highly recommend it. So that's it for Ringside this time. If something grabs me from the network, then I will sort of bring it to people's attention if I can. But this is worth a watch. It's only 5 episodes, nice and short. This is Bill from Pop Culture Pause Screen. Thanks for watching Ringside. Check out more on the channel. There's a lot more going on here now. And I hope to see you next episode. Take care.
9, 8, 7,